Hello, my name is Ted Gartland. I'm coming to you from my fabulous office in Rochester, New York. It's above a bar. It's great. You probably hear some trucks going on by outside. Anyway, we're faced right now in our industry with getting out of the refrigerant that we all rely upon, or many of us have been relying upon for many years, and that's R-22. R-22 has been around since I believe the 1940s. It was first used in air conditioners to make them smaller, and it's been used primarily in that application since, although it has also gotten its way into refrigeration by way of being blended as part of the original R-502, which was a low temperature refrigerant, which is a blend of R-22 and R-115, which was a CFC, and then into some of the blends such as 408, 409, MP39, MP66, HP80, 408A, and these refrigerants are based on R-22 and are going away. Now, why is that? Well, R-22 is an HCFC, and it has chlorine in it. And we've known for many, many years, since the early 90s really, that we were going to have to get out of 22. And it's just that date was always so far off that it didn't matter. And it was originally in 2030, got moved up to 2020. And right now, as of 2016, it's real. The product is not as widely available. You cannot use R-22 in new equipment anymore. You could still use it for your existing home air conditioner or your grocery store if you have blends that still have it. The EPA is never going to make it go away. They're just going to make it so that you can't manufacture it anymore. So it's just going to make the price go up. And one note on that, CFCs such as R12 have been gone since, they've not been manufactured since 1996, but you can still buy them. So if you have some, antique car that you want to keep original, you can still buy the R12. It's just very expensive, and that's going to be the same way with R22. In fact, R22 already is very expensive, and that's probably why some of you are seeing this video. Who the heck am I? I have been in the business, like I said, for 30 years. I worked for a manufacturer. Actually, I worked for two manufacturers, selling the product, promoting new products, and coming up with options, and really trying to help the industry understand where things are going. And I try to do that in a non-commercial way. I am a manufacturer's rep. I have some pictures on here of my leak detectors, but I do try to give just straight up advice here. So let's get to the slides. First off, like I said, we're going to be having to get out of some of these blends and R22 itself. I have a local grocer here that has R408A in it, and I hold my breath because they're an independent, and if they lose that full charge of 800 pounds, I don't know what it'll cost to replace it, but it's certainly going to be much higher than $20 a pound. And that's a pretty big hit. So what really should happen, if you have a store and you have a large amount of any of these blends or 22, you really should retrofit out of them. You really got to get out of them. Take the time and do it. Now, if you have a self-contained system, such as a little air conditioner like you see behind me, you don't have to do that. They don't leak. They really don't leak much. So really kind of save it for the systems that are larger, that maybe you've had leaks of in the past, and make sure to get rid of that refrigerant. Change it to something else, or change a piece of equipment. So when you are changing the refrigerant, you just can't drop in anything. You really got to find something that matches what you have, and what that means is there's something called your capacity, which is how much heat does it take away, and how much refrigerant do you need to flow through that system in order to take it away. Some refrigerants may have less the capacity, so you have to run more refrigerant through the coils. Well, that's fine if you have enough coil, but you may not have enough coil, which would mean you wouldn't have enough capacity. And also, the system is set up for the original refrigerant you have in there, and that refrigerant has what's called thermostatic expansion valves on it, and those expansion valves are set for the refrigerant that's in there. So if you have R408, it was probably originally set up for R502, and you're going to need to really address that, because there's it's going to be hard to replace it. In the case of R22, if you have R22 and right now it's set up for R22, you want to find a refrigerant that looks like that. That would be your ideal solution from a capacity standpoint and that thing. Now, one of the main things, I think I get a lot of calls. Like I said, I've been doing this for years, and I get calls from all over the world. I actually consulted for up to $300 an hour on this stuff. These refrigerants are all really made up of the same chemicals, and we know what they are, and we know kind of what they do, and we try to blend them up and meet the specific thing we're trying to replace. And if you notice, you see a lot of these refrigerants that are new ones. Some of them have trade names, like Hot Shot is a trade name. It's also, I believe, 416A. These refrigerants have been given ASHRAE numbers. You'll see that right here, the R409, for instance, and 408. These refrigerants are given anything that is a blended refrigerant that's put together with two refrigerants as one is given a 400 series number. And then they're given, based on their commercialization, when they came out and when they've been tried to be commercialized, they're given a number in succession. And I believe the highest number I've seen right now through ASHRAE, I believe, is like 453. The A, B, C, that part right here, means that it's basically the same blend of refrigerants, but you might have different amounts of each, and you might have a 33 mix in one, and then the next one is 50% one and 25 of the other. So that's your A, B, C, D. 407 right now is actually all the way up to G, and each one of those will give you slightly different effect on the system. So there are a gazillion of these things out there right now, and I actually have a spreadsheet. I've gone through it where I've gone through all these refrigerants, and you can't believe how many are out there and how many are coming and how many really are made of the same thing, or may just be like getting around the patent or something like that. So let's go on to the next thing. So the EPA, because they recognize that you may be replacing a refrigerant that's going away with something that is worse, they said, well, wait a second, we're going to actually approve or disapprove your refrigerant, and we're going to list them as approved or disapproved, or delist them if they're not, they've never made the list. And in retail food refrigeration, which is a sector of this, one of the major changes they've just come out with this year, again 2016, is that you can no longer retrofit or use these new refrigerants. You can still use these new refrigerants in new systems up until January 1st of 2017, but right now we're in late August. You cannot use them to retrofit. That window is closed. So why did they delist these refrigerants? Because there's new ones out there that have roughly half the global warming potential, which is a big deal. It's a big environmental difference. The EPA never had that authority before on global warming, but they do now. They're taking some steps to really address this, and that's why you've seen some of these refrigerants come off the board. EPA changes, when they make a snap change, it takes years. It's not something that they just say, hey, we're going to get rid of this gas. It's really not that simple. I do want to exit this for 1 second and show you something about the EPA SNAP. I went to the EPA SNAP website here, and they have everything is approved or disapproved by sectors. And you'll see I'm in the retail food refrigeration sector, and there's different ones in here. So the one we're interested in for this particular topic is supermarket systems. So I click on that, and you'll see there's a list of them. And in this list, for instance, 407A is approved. It's been approved. Some of these other ones, like 407B, which you don't see anymore, is disapproved because its GWP is too high. You're probably not, as a retailer, going to be, paying a lot of attention to this. Your contractor should know this, but you could be well informed here that it is. But these sectors, it's all done sector by sector. So in supermarket refrigeration, which they just redid, you'll see the list. Now they have started on some other sectors. One of them being warehouse refrigeration, cold storage, excuse me. And in that case, they may actually lower the GWP of accepted refrigerants. But that doesn't mean that in supermarket systems. Why am I paying attention to this and kind of beating it to death? Because if you have an approved refrigerant right now, I think it's going to take years and years for that refrigerant to become disapproved. And so your decision really needs to be based on what is approved today. So let's go back to my slides here, and let's look at the meat here, which is what is approved and what's disapproved. These are all the refrigerants that are currently on the SNAP list that are approved or disapproved. And in the case, start over here to the right here, 404 and 507, HP62 and AZ50, those are no longer allowed to be used in new systems as of 2017 or retrofitted right today. But all these other refrigerants, which you may have heard of or may not have heard of, have been out there as well. And they have been delisted just like the others. Why is that? Because the EPA looked at what was available, and they put this. They didn't actually give us a number, but you can see by the chart that it looks like it came in somewhere around 2,200, and they don't allow a refrigerant that is above that anymore. So 407A is the one that right now is my favorite refrigerant. The reason is it's commercially available, made by many different manufacturers. It's approved, and it's got half the global warming potential of these other ones on the right, and the ones that are being pushed on the left are not that much lower. So I don't really, you'll get some economic benefit or potentially benefit from going with a lower GWP refrigerant, but is it that much lower, and how long do I have? So now what this chart shows on the left is your global warming potential. Sorry, I should have started with that. Carbon dioxide is 1, so everything else is sort of a multiple of that. So this 404, for instance, is almost 4,000 times as much as CO2. So that's one of the reasons it's being hammered. So you'll notice these refrigerants are what are these colors? Well, the colors are what they're made of here on the right, and it's basically 125, which is the orange, which almost every one of them has. 134A, which is the blue, and almost every one of them has that as well. Some of them have 143A, which is a high global warmer, and that's why these blends really didn't make it. And some of them have mixtures and parts of other things. 407, you see, I told you they go all the way up to G right now, A through G, and on this list you see A is to the right, C is to the left. C is more of an air conditioning blend. It's got a little more 134A in it than 125, but because of that, it has a lower GWP. This has a little more 125, which is more of a refrigeration refrigerant, and a little 32, which is a very efficient, somewhat flammable refrigerant. That refrigerant has to be masked. You have to mask any flammable with a non-flammable. And so anyway, you can see that I particularly like 407A because it matches R-22 in existing systems. If you're replacing 22, you can basically put it in there with oil changes, and it'll work. I had my first company I ever worked with. They did the retrofit to it, and they said, well, we're just going to take a 22 store. We're going to pull the gas out. We're going to change the oil to POE oil. We're going to do a couple changes, but we're not going to fiddle around with the valves because we don't want to, we don't want to optimize either of them. We want to see what happens in a real store. They put it in and it works. And it's been working fine for years and years and years. Again, looks like 22 and is my particular choice. 407F is another popular one Honeywell has. It's a little bit lower GWP, and it's just a little bit different. Makeup has a little more 32 in it. It's got a little bit higher discharge temperature, which is something else. That can, if you're using liquid flooding to cool off your they call it demand cooling, it'll turn on faster on a hot day. So overall the capacity and the efficiency are pretty similar for these two. I don't know a lot about some of these other ones. They have more 134A unless they don't have the other parts. I kind of doubt if they're made. Now, if it has a lot more 134A in it, it's probably more of a medium temp blend. That's kind of my take. You'll see the ones on the left, N40 and XP40 are really big. You hear a lot about them right now. Basically what they do, it doesn't even show up because the global warming part of that is so small, is they replace some of that 134A with HFO, which is an ultra low. They work fine. I don't really know. They work fine. They're a little bit more expensive. The price is down there with the other ones. I would seriously consider them. If the price is high, I just at this point I would stick with the other. What do you have to do if you have a large system and you have large systems? Have a plan. Your R-22, if you have R-22 in large quantities and you pull it out of the system, it's got value, and you can take that refrigerant, bring it to a reclaimer, and they will pay you money for it, and you can use that money to do the retrofit. If you have blended refrigerants, such as 408, 409, they really don't have value, if any value. They may even cost you money to get rid of. Your new refrigerants, just make sure that when you go with it, that you have it available. If you have a big leak, you want to be able to keep your food cold, so make sure you have a wholesaler that's stocking it. How expensive is it? You have leaks over time. You're going to be, living with this thing for years, and you'll have to replace it at some point. And how expensive is it? And also the energy efficiency. You cannot overlook this, and you really need to dig into that as far as the efficiency. And I would not just go to the manufacturer's website. I would check with your compressor guys to see what they say, your rack guys, see what they say. I don't think, like I said, I don't think EPA SNAP is going to change anytime soon for supermarket refrigeration. So I would not make my decision based on, 407A is going to get snapped out. I really don't think that's going to happen very soon. And if it did happen, let's say that something did happen, you took a 22 system and you changed it out to 407A right now. The main part of that's going to be your oil change. Kick your gas out, replace the oil, put in the new gas, it works. And let's say that something happens and economically it becomes that 407A is a lot more expensive. But if you're replacing it with a lower GWP gas, you basically, all you're going to have to do is pull out the 407A and put in the new refrigerant. And they're both 22 substitutes, so they're going to look the same, so I really wouldn't worry about it. In air conditioning, it's a different animal. I may do another talk on that just to help the homeowner, a person with a small system. But anyway, thank you for your time. We'll talk to you soon.